In 2025, millions of loyal Windows users found their trusted operating system transformed, bombarded by full-screen ads, mandatory online accounts, and features like Recall capturing screenshots behind their backs. Frustration peaked as Microsoft ended free Windows 10 security updates, cornering users into an upgrade they neither wanted nor trusted. But beneath the headlines, data pointed to an exodus with consequences that stunned even Microsoft. What happened next would force the tech giant to confront its worst nightmare. The details will surprise you. A retired teacher sits at her desk, trying to prepare lesson plans on her familiar Windows PC. Suddenly, a full-screen ad for Microsoft 365 interrupts her work, demanding attention before she can continue. Minutes later, the system insists on a mandatory update, counting down to a forced reboot with no option to delay. She sighs, remembering when updates happen quietly in the background, not in the middle of her work. Now, every login requires a Microsoft account, her old local account locked out until she agrees. The new Recall feature quietly takes periodic screenshots of everything on her screen, raising fears about privacy she never had before. Online, support forums are flooded with complaints. Over 10 million Windows 11 grievances have poured into Microsoft's help desk in just 4 years, with hundreds of thousands arriving each month. For many, the final straw comes with the official end of life notice for Windows 10, posted in October 2025. Security updates are cut off, and users are told to upgrade or risk exposure. For people like her, the sense of control and trust that once defined Windows is gone. Global market share figures for desktop operating systems rarely make headlines, but the numbers released in December 2025 caught the attention of the entire tech world. For decades, Linux hovered at the margins, a distant alternative known mostly to hobbyists and IT professionals. Now, a new report placed Linux at 11.4% of desktops worldwide, a figure that, if accurate, would represent a dramatic break from the past. The data came from a survey of 89,000 recent Linux adopters, and the details were even more striking. 87% of these users had previously relied on Windows as their primary system. Unlike previous years, when Linux growth could be dismissed as a rounding error, this surge was too large to ignore. The methodology, described as survey-based, relied on self-reporting from individuals who had recently switched, capturing a wave of migration that traditional web analytics often miss. Suddenly, what had been a collection of scattered frustrations became a measurable trend. The story was no longer just about individual complaints. It was about a collective movement, one that was now visible in the numbers. Inside Microsoft's executive offices, a document stamped with a red leaked watermark circulates among senior staff. The internal forecast, never meant for outside eyes, lays out a scenario once dismissed as impossible. If current user migration trends continue, Linux could claim between 18 and 22% of the global desktop market by the end of 2026. The report warns this would push Linux past macOS, making it the second most popular desktop operating system worldwide. For decades, Apple had been the only real challenger, but its high hardware cost kept its share in check. Now, Microsoft faces a competitor it cannot outspend or outlicense, an open-source movement fueled by user frustration and collective action. The document details the potential fallout: lost revenue from software licensing, weakened influence over hardware standards, and the risk of developers prioritizing Linux compatibility over Windows. Quiet anxiety settles in the boardroom. For the first time, the threat comes not from Silicon Valley rivals, but from a global community of users choosing to leave. In 2022, Valve released the Steam Deck, a handheld gaming device that ran on a customized Linux operating system. Millions of units were sold within the first 3 years, turning a niche experiment into a mainstream success. The deck's secret weapon was Proton, a compatibility layer that let users play thousands of Windows games natively on Linux, with no dual booting and no complicated setup. gamers noticed something unexpected. Many titles ran just as smoothly, and sometimes they even outperformed their Windows 11 installations. Benchmarks posted across forums and YouTube showed frame rates holding steady, with lower system overhead and fewer background processes consuming resources. For the first time, Linux was not just for programmers or hobbyists, it was a legitimate gaming platform. Public data from the Steam Hardware Survey tracked Linux's steady climb, with nearly 10% of Steam users on Linux-powered devices by the end of 2025, a leap from just a few percent before the DEC's launch. In gaming circles, conversations shifted. Instead of asking if Linux could run their favorite games, players compared performance stats and shared tips for maximizing battery life and tweaking Proton settings. The DEC had proven that Linux could handle more than spreadsheets and code. It could win over gamers, one frame at a time. A new wave of Linux users does not find their way through tech forums or developer circles. They follow YouTube creators, migration guides, and workflow demonstrations, once niche, now top search results, and earn millions of views. Analytics on popular channels like Chris Titus Tech, Linus Tech Tips, and DistroTube show migration tutorials consistently crossing the 1 million mark, with some installation walkthroughs surpassing 3 million. These videos break down the process step by step, including partitioning drives, configuring Wi-Fi, installing drivers, and setting up familiar software. Creators take viewers through each stage calmly and clearly. Comment sections fill with users reporting their first successful boot, often within hours of viewing. Creators showcase real-world scenarios, editing videos in DaVinci Resolve, running Microsoft Office Online, and managing finances in open-source alternatives. The old myth that Linux is only for engineers fades as creators document entire professional workflows, from code development to creative production, without a single command line. The result is practical visibility that turns curiosity into confidence. The cultural shift is visible in the numbers. Cumulative views for Linux migration content now reach into the tens of millions. For many people, the tipping point is not technical. It is seeing someone else, just like them, make the leap and thrive. Migration is no longer an experiment. It is a permanent movement powered by the accessibility and visibility of creator-led tutorials. A procurement summary stamped official sits on the conference table as the IT director for a major European city addresses the board. The numbers are clear. Switching from Windows 11 to Linux across more than 20,000 workstations will cut annual licensing costs by millions of euros. The director outlines how Windows 11's new hardware requirements would force an expensive round of upgrades, while Linux runs efficiently on existing machines. The General Data Protection Regulation, known as GDPR, adds pressure. Linux offers more control and transparency and reduces compliance risks. Procurement documents detail projected savings not only on licenses, but also on reduced support calls and longer hardware lifespans. For the board, the decision is less about ideology and more about stability, cost, and risk management. The migration is approved and IT teams begin the process of moving thousands of desktops to open-source software, guided by a mandate to protect data and stretch every euro further. A freelance video editor sits at her workstation comparing two identical 4K projects, one exported on Windows 11, the other on a fresh Linux install running DaVinci Resolve. The stopwatch tells the story. The Linux system finishes the export in just under 13 minutes, while Windows takes nearly 16 minutes. She points to the resource monitor. Linux keeps background processes minimal, leaving more power for rendering. For her, the switch isn't about ideology. It's about time saved and fewer interruptions. She describes how software like Blender and Kdenlive run without lag, and updates never hijack her workflow. The myth that Linux is a hurdle for creative professionals fades with every project. She says, "I moved for privacy, but stayed for speed." This is not an experiment, it is the new normal for her business. Modern Linux distributions now greet users with polished, intuitive interfaces that rival anything from the commercial world. The days of cryptic commands and missing drivers have faded, replaced by desktop environments like GNOME and KDE that offer familiar layouts and smooth navigation. Installing new software is as simple as opening a built-in app store, and popular package managers such as GNOME Software and KDE Discover deliver one-click access to thousands of trusted applications. Essential tools for office work, design, and media editing are available out of the box or through these managers, with professional-grade options like LibreOffice, GIMP, and DaVinci Resolve covering most needs. Hardware compatibility has reached impressive levels, with automatic detection for printers, Wi-Fi, and graphics cards across most devices. For users seeking alternatives to Windows, the experience now feels less like a leap and more like a seamless transition. Today, the choice between closed platforms and open alternatives grows more urgent. As user control shifts from corporate hands to community code, what we accept or reject will define the digital world ahead. In the end, freedom on your desktop is no longer a slogan, it is a decision.